United Nations Special Envoy in Kuwait to push political talks between warring parties. Security Council permanent members discuss with bin Mubarak at the latest developments in Riyadh. Having control on Hodeidah port, Houthi rebels threaten safety of the threat sea and international navigation. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rana Sweden. UN envoy Hans Grundberg met Kuwaiti Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs to discuss the situation in Yemen. Grundberg stressed the importance of creating a consensus in order to move forward and achieve a political settlement. UN envoy valued the vital role played by Kuwait as an established partner in the efforts to bring about peace in Yemen, while at the same time expressing concern about the Houthi escalation in Ma'rib and Hodeidah. Minister of Foreign Affairs Ahmed Awad bin Mubarak discussed with ambassadors of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council developments in Yemen. The meeting focused on the economic pressures and challenges facing the government. Bin Mubarak stressed the need of providing the necessary financial support to the central bank to help improve the currency exchange. He also touched on the military situation in Ma'rib Governorate, expressing the government's confidence in the Yemeni army. As for safer tanker, the foreign minister pointed out the importance of making every possible effort to avoid the environmental and humanitarian catastrophe posed by the aging tanker. On their part, ambassadors of the P5 countries expressed their support for the government and renewed their commitment for the unity, security and stability of Yemen. UN mission for Hodeidah offered to hold discussions between the parties of the Hodeidah agreement. The mission expressed its readiness to ease discussions within the framework of the Stockholm Agreement, noting that the removal of the joint forces from the city is a major shift. Government sources said that about 700 families have been displaced to the city of Al Khoukha. The humanitarian cell of the National Resistance set up a camp east of Al Khoukha to house the displaced from Hodeidah. An official source in the humanitarian cell of the National Resistance said that the number of families that were housed today reached 120 families. From Riyadh to Tehran, passing by Aden and now eventually in Kuwait, the UN envoy since taking office has been conducting intensive diplomatic activity in the region and Yemen. The sole aim of such diplomacy is to achieve immediate ceasefire and start political talks. The following report has more details on the UN recent intensive efforts.
The United Nations mission to support Hodeidah agreement called on warring parties to hold new talks over as the Saudi-led coalition strafed areas south of the port city. Likewise, the UN envoy Hans Grundberg visited Kuwait and held talks with the Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs. Coalition airstrikes were the first since late 2018, when the government and Houthis agreed a UN-sponsored pact for a truce in Hodeidah and a troop redeployment by both sides. Coalition spokesman General Turki al-Maliki, in the first clarification on the abrupt withdrawal from Hodeidah, said that the redeployment was ordered to support other fronts and in line with the coalition's future plans. Experts with the Yemeni file believe that this step perhaps is to prepare for future talks. General al-Maliki called on the United Nations to implement the Stockholm Agreement by pressurizing Houthi militia to fully comply and implement the provisions of the agreement. The United Nations mission overseeing the Hodeidah deal and the Yemeni government team involved in it had said that they had no advance notice. The United Nations said the shifting front lines led some 700 families to leave for Al Khoukha, and some 180 families head further south to Al Makha. According to local authorities, 7,000 individuals have been displaced from Al Durayhimi, Hodeidah and Al Tuhaita cities. Local authority in Makha said that some 1,400 individuals arrived at the district during the past 2 days. Meanwhile, the United Nations envoy for Yemen Hans Grundberg met with Kuwaiti Prime Minister Sheikh Sabah al-Khalid al-Sabah and Minister of Foreign Affairs Sheikh Ahmed Nasser Mohammed al-Sabah. Grundberg said that Kuwait's commitment to promote peaceful political dialogue remains vital in helping achieve sustainable peace in Yemen. He further emphasized the importance of a comprehensive and inclusive approach that address political security and economic issues that concern all Yemenis. Yemen has been mired in violence since the Houthi coup late 2014. Kuwait plays an important role in the Yemeni file, as it has previously held negotiations, the last of which was in 2016 between the conflict parties. UN and US efforts to engineer a nationwide ceasefire have stalled as Houthis insist the coalition first lift a blockade on their areas, while Riyadh wants a simultaneous deal. Current endeavors indicate to a close breakthrough in the Yemeni file, especially in Hodeidah and Marib. Yet the only obstacle to reach an inclusive political settlement is Houthi obstinacy, as until now they haven't shown signs of good faith, despite Yemeni's faith that this war could end only by peace and not by fighting.
To Hodeidah, coalition jets launched a series of raids on Houthi positions in Hais and Tuhaita. The military media of the joint forces reported that the coalition raids inflicted losses in lives and equipment on the rebels. The coalition had confirmed that it would launch airstrikes if the Houthi militia moved outside Stockholm mandate. U.S. press sources said Republicans in Congress are finalizing a bill to reimpose sanctions against the Iran-backed Houthi rebels. Republican lawmakers say lifting sanctions from Houthis incited them for more crimes. Worth mentioning, the Biden administration lifted sanctions that were imposed on Houthis last February. Chief of Staff General Saghir bin Aziz met the military attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Yemen. The meeting discussed latest developments in the country and the role played by the Yemeni armed forces in defense of legitimacy, international security, and peace in the region. It also reviewed the Yemeni role in securing international navigation in the Red Sea. For his part, the U.S. military attaché indicated that Yemen is a key partner in combating terrorism and securing the region. He reiterated that the United States continues to support legitimacy and peace in Yemen. Chief of Staff also met with the military attaché at the British Embassy in Yemen. The British military attaché affirmed UK's support for restoring the state and achieving peace in Yemen. The Red Sea is an important naval route for the world. This marine passage is at risk if Houthis continue to control Hodeidah port. More details on the threat which Houthis pose on the safety of the Red Sea are within this report.
Red Sea is a world navigation route through which international navigation is passing. The route, however, is under real threat. Houthi rebels who are backed by Iran are posing a threat on the Red Sea through a number of tools. The Houthis deploy armored seaboats and use coastal bases to launch missiles. The rebels make use of intelligence and information system to allow them to choose the time and place of confrontation and to inflict damage on maritime security. Such acts by the militia threaten the security and safety of trade ships and the marine navigation in one of the world's most significant waterways. Houthis used Hodeidah ports to launch their attacks with unmanned booby-trapped boats. Bab el-Mandeb Strait, south of the Red Sea, could be threatened by Houthi control of Hodeidah ports. This control will greatly affect the security and safety of maritime traffic. The situation in the strait may deteriorate if the Iranian-backed Houthis decide to plant more mines along the maritime route. This calls for more Arab engagement, according to experts. To maintain Arab national security in Bab el-Mandeb, a military naval force must be established. This force should be able to obtain the right of boarding and searching ships in order to curtail Iranian influence in the area. Fragile security in the Red Sea could lure more migrants to and from Yemen, with consequences on other countries. The international community and the United Nations should take accordingly a serious action against the Houthi threat, which target not only Yemen's stability, but also the international security and the world's interests.
A military force moved from Azal Axis in Saada to join the battles in Marib. Consolidating Marib front comes in support of the government forces to defend the city from Houthi invasion. This force consists of 2 well-trained battalions belonging to the Ministry of Defense.
واستجابة لنداء الواجب الذي نستشعره نحن جميعا.
A response to the call for duty for our state and for our brothers who headed for the battle before us in Marib, Shabwa and other fronts. We loaned the 1st and the 2nd Battalion in the axis of Azal and the 1st Infantry Brigade to support the National Army in its heroic battles in Marib.
A human rights report revealed 70 cases of Houthi violations against civilians in Taiz governor during October. The report documented the killing of 20 civilians, including 2 women and 6 children, and the injury of 15, as a result of mines and Houthi bombing on populated areas. Coming next. World Health Organization says that millions of Yemeni children are suffering from chronic malnutrition.
اضطرينا ان نغادر من ذي وزحنا.
الله يستنقذكم يا محولتين، الله يستنقذ.
Welcome back. World Health Organization said that 75% of children in Yemen are affected by malnutrition. This alarming percentage reflects the atrocities and ugliness of this mad war. More details on this story are within this report.
The war in Yemen, caused by the Houthi militia, has resulted in the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, with about 80% of the Yemeni population in need of aid. The United Nations World Health Organization confirmed that 3 out of 4 children, equivalent to 75%, suffer from acute malnutrition. The organization said in a brief statement published on Twitter that 16.2 million Yemenis suffer from food insecurity, and 3 out of 4 Yemeni children suffer from chronic malnutrition. Parents in Yemen rush their children to hospitals, not because they have a flu or a disease, but their kids are malnourished and are extremely suffering to only survive. In addition to that, the World Health Organization, in partnership with German Agency for International Cooperation and the Ministry of Public Health and Population, has maintained nutritional care services for more than a year and helped save the lives of 9,384 children. The rate of child malnutrition is one of the highest in the world, and the nutrition situation continues to deteriorate. A recent survey showed that almost 1/3 of families have gaps in their diets and hardly ever consume foods like vegetables, fruit, dairy products, or meat. Malnutrition rates among women and children in Yemen remain among the highest in the world, with 1.2 million pregnant or breastfeeding women and 2.3 million children under 5 requiring treatment for acute malnutrition. UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Fore talked about how the increasing number of children going hungry in Yemen should shock us all into action, and more children will die with every day that passes without action.
Without peace, we cannot help these children, we cannot help the people in need, and there will be no return of livelihoods.
Today, Yemeni children suffer from extreme malnutrition. The country has poor health services for children, and families suffer to help their children survive. The humanitarian situation in Yemen is extremely fragile, and any disruption in the supplies such as food, fuel, and medicines has the potential to bring millions of people closer to starvation and death.
The Central Bank of Yemen announced results of the second auction for the sale of foreign currency. The bank said that the number of bidders reached 6 banks, while the number of bids submitted and accepted was 16, adding that the total amount of accepted bids amounted to more than $14 million. The central bank in Yemen seeks to pump foreign currencies in order to limit the deterioration of the Yemeni rial. Taiz is witnessing a significant increase in gasoline, which has negatively affected all aspects of life. The increase in the value of the internal transportation in the city has a significant impact on university students and professors.
Currently, a large number of students and I who come to university have spent more than 4,000 riyals for transportation. This is besides other educational materials. High prices and high transportation fares become a hard burden on the university students. We want to widen this initiative to become a part of culture. If you have someone in your way, give him a ride. If you own a car, you can take students with you. Transportation fares become high and there is a chaos. This burdens the student and the employee who is to come to the university. Authorities have to take an action to ease the situation.
Remittance was an important asset for the Yemeni economy. However, the amount of remittance dropped heavily during the past years due to war. More in the following report.
There has been an unprecedented decline in the flow of remittances to Yemen, a vital source of money for millions, just as cases of coronavirus increase and international aid dries up in a country already devastated by more than 5 years of war. In the context of violence and deepening economic and humanitarian crisis, the significance of remittances has increased during the conflict. Remittances have become the primary source of foreign currency and play a more significant role in terms of import financing and Yemen's balance of payments. Remittances helped mitigate the challenges that the Central Bank of Yemen faced trying to underwrite fuel and food imports. Money transfer providers in 6 governorates across Yemen said that they had seen the number of remittances drop by as much as 80%, as Yemenis working in Gulf states, the UK and the US saw their incomes plummet due to lockdowns and social distancing. The vast majority of Yemeni migrants reside and work in Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states. Most are not covered by those states' economic initiatives to protect jobs and businesses, so they have faced the loss of their income as well as continued living expenses. In Saada, a business owner said that the number of remittances his business received had dropped from 2,500 in January to barely 100 in March and April, a reduction of 96%. An estimated of 30,000 people were dependent on this money. The World Bank estimates that 1 in 10 people in Yemen wholly rely on money transfers to meet their basic needs. Remittances are an important source of foreign currency, helping to stabilize Yemen's hard-hit economy. Yemen's central bank is the main funding body for imports which the country relies on for basic supplies, including oil, food, and medicine. The decline in remittances is expected to trigger another wave of the Yemeni rial depreciation as the country's foreign currency reserves dwindle. Without the safety net of remittances, more Yemenis may be forced to rely on aid as a lifeline. The international community needs to make sure that life-saving aid continues to flow to those most in need and help Yemenis to achieve a proper, decent life for themselves and their children.
Doctors Without Borders warned of the increasing number of people suffering from mental illness in Yemen. The organization said that Yemen needs a comprehensive and a long-term approach to tackle the looming mental health crisis. It warned that mental health problems can turn into chronic problems on a larger scale. The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 12 new cases of the COVID-19 in 4 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 9 cases were recorded in Aden, 1 in Taiz, 1 in Hadramaut, and 1 in Shabwa. Also, 1 death was recorded plus 22 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 9,936, including 1,926 deaths and 6,665 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. United Nations Special Envoy in Kuwait to push political talks between warring parties. Security Council permanent members discuss with bin Mubarak latest developments in Riyadh. Having control on Hodeida port, Houthi rebels threaten safety of the Red Sea and international navigation. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.